What's going on, you guys, and welcome back to the channel. I hope this video finds you well and that you're excited because it means that we finally get to start having a little bit of fun. And I figured the best and most proper way for us to really get this train rolling would be to circle back around and hit some of the Phantom of the Opera stuff that we have yet to cover. Starting with, as you can see, the book. Now, I should probably mention that because of how I initially intended on releasing these, we are technically going a little bit out of order with this, because I realized that I'd really like to be able to use it as a basis of sorts for the arguments and opinions that I have for some of the other reviews that are going to be following this. But to begin, I don't really know if it's like this with every copy of this book or just the one that I have. But there is quite a bit of extracurricular information provided in this thing. It gives us a pretty in-depth look at Phantom's lengthy and somewhat turbulent legacy through cinema and some of the other mediums that it's been represented in. But it also seems to put forth this opinion that because it is so extensive and there are all these different adaptations that have spanned, decades, that perhaps the book has lost some of its significance. Perhaps people don't really care about the original work or the book itself. It then goes on to provide us with a little bit of background information on the man who wrote it himself, Gaston Leroux, such as him living between the years of 1868 and 1927, dying at 59 years old, having written 63 books, one of which, of course, being Phantom of the Opera, which was written in 1911, taking approximately 3 months to complete. It also tells us that back in the day, he had a career as a pretty devil-may-care style investigative journalist, essentially risking life and limb to go out wherever he needed to go to get the biggest story that he could. Stories that no one else would even dare to try and get. And when he eventually retired from that to pursue becoming an author, he liked to apply a lot of that skill set into his writing. Now, if memory serves, he found himself in a musical institute in Paris. Just kind of tooling around, doing some different research, when he ended up stumbling across some documentation detailing some pretty strange goings-on in the majestic opera house that was linked to the legend of the opera ghost. And the more he found and the more he read and things like that, he started to think, like, these documents are dated no more than 30 years ago. So it's highly likely that the vast majority of these people may still be employed there, or at the very least still alive. So actually, all of the iconic characters that we know and love from the movies are real people that he investigated. And the book itself is constructed from their firsthand account, or knowledge of the events that happened there. Gaston himself goes as far as to even claim that he had seen the body or the final resting place of the Phantom himself when he was investigating the catacombs beneath the Opera House. And I just personally found all of that information super intriguing and fascinating. But as far as reviewing the book, obviously I know that there's no adaptation out there that is going to be 100% faithful to the source material. It's just kind of a given. But I do remember kind of giving this early prediction that Lon Chaney's silent film was probably going to end up being one of, if not the closest we would get. And I still feel that to be the case, primarily on the basis that as I was reading, that was the film that came to mind. Those were the scenes that just popped into my mind's eye as I was going through it. I do, however, need to give a fair bit of credit to Andrew Lloyd Webber's version, albeit that one kind of the sequence of events is a little bit out of order, but I chalked that up to, it being a dramatic tone, a romantic tone as opposed to a horror tone, and then just needing to manipulate that a little bit to make that story work. Now, some things that I really enjoyed that the book did, apart from, or above everything else, was I think it gives us the most intense version of the love triangle. Um, Christine and Raoul definitely have their thing going on. They have their childhood friendship happening. Christine gets seduced by Erik, the angel of music, because she hasn't been able to separate or realize that Erik and Phantom are the same person. And there's a particular scene where Christine eventually tells Raoul, I can't be with you, I'm gonna marry Erik. That is the person that I want to be with. And it pushes Raoul over the edge. He completely loses it. He actually goes as far as to say that he hates Christine in so many words. But his love for her kind of turns to this obsession where, he's thinking about her all the time. She is the only thing on his mind, to the point where his brother goes as far as to take him to a brothel to, get his mind off of her, right? And he ends up having a breakdown here because Christine is the only woman that he sees, and he just can't drop it. And that is a side of Raoul that I don't recall getting to see up until this point in any of the movies. So I thought that was super cool. And then, of course, we find out a little bit later that Christine was forced to marry him and say all those things, and that she's actually terrified for her life and all of that, which brings us to, further on into the book. But yeah, I just thought that was super interesting to see that side of Raoul and those events play out in that way, because we hadn't really gotten to see that yet. Um, in my opinion, this is also probably the saddest version of the Phantom that we get. If not for the reason of he gets his mask because his mom throws it at him. Because he is so hideously disfigured and disgusting to look at that that is the only way that she can stomach looking at him. If that doesn't do it, then it has to be the fact that he dies cold and alone in his lair, having uh, allowed Christine to run away with Raoul and get married or whatever. He ends up just kind of going off to die, and he was said to have been clutching Christine's wedding ring that he gave her in his hand, which I don't know. The combination of those two things is probably the most heartbreaking thing that I've ever read. Um, but yeah, in closing, I would say that I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was an entertaining and very engaging read. And I would just say that while I can definitely understand the sentiment of, all of the different movies and stuff, um, definitely encapsulating all of the story elements to the point where, once you've seen as many as I have or we have on the channel, um, there's not really a whole lot to unearth. There's not a whole lot left to experience when it comes to the book, and I can definitely agree with and understand that sort of path of thinking, right? But I still see it as something that has value, something that should be appreciated and respected, because without it, we wouldn't have all of the different versions of the movies. We wouldn't have all of those things. Without the original book, the story of the Phantom would have never probably been told. And I just think it's really important to keep value and respect and appreciation for um, Gaston's, work. Uh, with that, though, guys, I hope you enjoyed this, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.